Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Can't Be Bothered with Abby and Anna.
Hey, hey.
I'm actually really excited about this. I mean, I'm excited about every single episode. I don't know why I keep saying it, but this is one that I feel like has been more anticipated than others because you and I both just started watching the new season of Real Housewives of New York. We're a little bit late to the party, but I finished not too long ago and I have so many thoughts that I want to just get out. And so, yeah, I'm really looking forward to chatting about these ladies.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I binge watched the latest New York season probably in like 2 days.
Yeah, you really did that
Like,
thing.
I honestly flew through it so quickly to the point where I feel like I should go back and rewatch it because I probably missed some things, but I was just so enamored by these women. Like,
Yeah. Honestly, same.
yeah,
I feel
I'm
like
pumped.
they were really refreshing. I feel like it was something that I didn't know I needed. I was apprehensive to start watching it at first just because, you and I both really love Real Housewives of New York, the original cast. And I think more than anything, just because it had been on for so long and we had a lot of the same housewives for a really long time. So I was really apprehensive to have a whole new cast. But then when I got into it, I was the same. I literally couldn't stop watching. I think I watched like 5 episodes in a row, just sitting in my bed, just watching.
Damn. Abby style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There was just something about it. And I totally agree. I think there was so much hesitancy with starting with a complete blank slate,
Yeah.
whole new cast. I know that that was a big move, and there was a lot of, hesitancy just across the board with all the viewers, but it really paid off. And I do kind of feel like similar maybe to New Jersey, it was
Hmm.
getting to a point where it's like we're ready for a change. Um, so it was perfect timing, but I am just so ready to embrace the next season.
Yeah, same. I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm so looking forward to it. Before we get into sort of our thoughts on the new Housewives, I did want to sort of talk about what we're leaving behind with the previous cast. And it's really interesting, like you were saying before we start recording, having the is it Ultimate Girls Trip or is it Legacy? Yeah, both.
I I I think they're one and the same.
Yeah, okay. Whatever that
We'll go with
is.
that.
It's kind of airing not at the same time. For us, it's airing at the same time because we're kind of like unraveling from the season, but it's interesting to have them both in the same year at least. It's been kind of cool to see the comparison and sort of I would love to see the numbers in comparison to both, like how much engagement the OG cast is getting versus the new one. But yeah, I think that that's interesting. I haven't seen it personally, so I can't really weigh in too much on my opinions of it, but I know that we're definitely leaving behind a lot of toxicity. For those of you that don't know or aren't super involved on social media with Bravo, there's been lots of conversations with former Real Housewives of New York, Ramona Singer, for not so surprising allegations against her of just being really toxic and really not a great person off camera. So definitely not surprised by that and happy to be leaving it behind.
Yeah, it's also like nothing new.
Yes.
Like it's not new,
Yeah.
and like the like what has been kind of exposed
Hmm.
about that is the way that she was talking to people, the way that she was treating people, the
Yeah.
language she was using,
Yeah.
which was happening in the past while she was on the show. So this had only just started to be kind of more formally exposed, I
Hmm.
would say, at this point. But definitely nothing new. I know Ramona was one who, for me, I just got really turned off by the show and was
Yeah.
like, why are we still doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we still here? I cannot stand this woman. She's right up there with like Vicky Gunvalson and Teresa
Yeah.
Giudice of like problematic white women.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I get that she brought a lot to the show, and I think like that had its time where reality TV kind of, Housewives in particular, starting off with like the height of toxicity for women in
Yeah.
television. Like she
Mhm.
did the job of that time, but we're in a different place now and we
Yeah.
needed something new. And I am really happy with the new cast. So definitely happy to leave that behind us.
Same, yeah. Going off of our last week's episode of what we want to leave behind in 2023, it feels fitting to sort of just lump that in there, leave it behind. I do feel like as much as I did love RHONY, I feel like there was this I feel like there was this sort of ghost like haunting that franchise that was really unfortunate of just like this is really problematic and icky
Mm.
and like it was becoming more and more apparent um just as like the most recent seasons before it ended and yeah, it's kind of weird too because it left off on a weird note. They didn't have a reunion in their last season. It kind of ended pretty abruptly.
Oh, I
And
know.
it was just so strange to leave off on that note. And I think I would love to sort of get into that more whenever we do talk about, behind the scenes in production. Like I'm wondering what that decision, like why that was made. Because we've seen Bravo sort of like rush in when some really big event happens. So for them to not finish off the season like they normally would, I think is an interesting choice. But and
Yeah,
I would love to know more about that behind the scenes, but definitely happy that that's sort of over and we don't have to be force watching ourselves to watch people that we don't align with value wise just because we have history with the show and we find it somewhat entertaining,
I know.
you know?
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, it would be really interesting to know more because I actually forgot that there was no reunion episode.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like we, I think for me, what happened in that last season with the previous cast was Ramona was really getting called out a lot more than I think I at least remember seeing her be called out.
Hmm.
Like I think maybe the closest was like Carol or Bethany, but
Hmm.
um just seeing like Leah really call her out a lot and Ebony as well. I
Hmm.
know Ebony kind of like I don't know. I think she did her little moment of kind of trying to guide her and take her under her wing a little bit and be like, "Hey, sister, listen up." But obviously didn't have an impact because
Hmm.
that's the kind of person that Ramona is.
Yeah.
But I personally would have loved to see more of Ebony and Leah. I really liked
Same.
them. And that was the only thing for me about changing the cast was I was really sad to know that we weren't going to get more of them.
Yeah, me too.
Um, but it is kind of interesting because Leah and Ebony are both, or at least have been involved with this reckoning with
Yeah.
Bethany Frankel. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to see. I think more will come out from both of
Yeah.
them. So I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I feel like I really want to hear what Leah and Ebony have to say, but I wish that there was, and maybe it is possible to like absorb that content without having to necessarily absorb Bethany's opinions of things. I just want to hear what they have to say and sort of
Yeah,
filter out the rest. Because, yeah, we've kind of talked about that a little bit. And I think the more that that evolves, I would love to talk about that on the podcast, the more that we get more information. But it's so hard to stomach listening to
I
Bethany
know.
sometimes that you just have to like fight through it. But I think we have it in us. We can do it. But I also do feel like as much as I am sad to not see Leah and Ebony, there was something about the dynamic of this cast that the way that they complemented each other, I think was really, really great. And there wasn't this like, I've been on before, you're the newbie. They were all new. And I think that they really
Yeah.
guided each other. And watching their reunion a few days ago and having Andy really recognize how proud he was of them for like doing such an incredible first season, like I thought that was great. And I totally agreed with that. And I just think this whole cast just complements each other so well. There's no Mary Cosby in here,
Oh, thank
you know?
God. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is such a good point about they were all starting at the same time. Like
Hmm.
they didn't really have that kind of hierarchy established.
Yeah.
I don't even know if any of them really knew each other before going, like maybe in passing, but I don't think
Yeah.
any of them were friends before.
No, it sounds like they hung out maybe a couple times before they started filming, which is understandable, but I don't think
Yeah.
any of them were like close friends.
Yeah. So I think that was really a smart move
Yeah, for
and
sure.
really helped play into how they bonded with each other.
Definitely. And it sounded like a lot of the initial conflict, especially between Jessel and the rest of the group, was about getting to know it and Jenna too, to some degree. Like, we just want to get to know you. Like, we want you to be vulnerable. We want you to share. We want you to be honest. Like, I love that that was kind of the main theme because we were getting to know them too, right? Like, it's not like we had all this context from a wife that's been there for years and years, and then they were all of a sudden just being shy about it. So I
Yeah.
thought that that was an interesting dynamic because we were all getting to know each other.
We're still getting to know each other happily.
Yeah, so I found one thing about this season that I loved the most was I just felt like how refreshing it was. There's something about it. I think there was just this realness. They weren't pretending to be people they weren't. They weren't super stuck up. I feel like personally, I feel like there's a lot of just like honesty and realness and also celebration of their success that was really empowering to see other women do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something about Housewives I love so much, but it's such a slippery slope between goading and like saying, look at all this great shit I have, and I'm just like amazing and affluent, versus like, I have amazing shit and like I love that, but also I've like come a long way and I've earned this, and like I'm celebrating my success in like this phase of my life. And I thought that that was really cool.
Yeah, that's so well said. Oh, stop it.
Stop it.
Um, I do think that the former cast, um, sh I don't know, I felt like they paraded a lot more of
Yeah.
that, and like it definitely was more of that kind of like old money vibe.
Yeah.
But I feel like the new cast really has that New York vibe that I think about when I think about New York. Not that
Hmm.
I have that much experience with it, but I don't know, just I get the New Yorker vibe really strongly, but in a way that feels accessible to
Yeah.
peasants like us. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it was definitely easier and felt a little bit of a warmer welcome as opposed to just
Yeah.
like, wow, we have absolutely nothing in common.
Yeah, and like if you think about the ways that even like some marriages in the show were presented, like I'm just thinking back of like Lisa Vanderpump and even like Kyle Richards, like the way that in the earlier seasons they were presenting their marriages is so different from the way that like Sai showed up and the way that Jessel was super honest. And even the
Yeah.
way that Aaron and I forget her husband's name, Abe,
Yeah.
were sort of like talking about their relationship too. Like it was just interesting to see these people just come in and be like, yeah, we have young kids. It's fucking crazy. Let's talk about sex life. Let's talk about all this shit. Like, you would not catch like, this is their first season. I
I
just still can't believe
know.
that. It just felt so natural for them to just be like this. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I guess too, like when many of the other housewives would have started, it would have been, in the mid to late 2000s, like,
Yeah.
or 2000 and, starting in 2007.
Yeah.
Such a different era.
I
So
know.
to start, in 2023, that's a very different vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, interesting.
Hmm. I also think having one of the first, not the first, I know there's been some confusion on that. One of the first queer housewife women on the show. I think like that's really cool. And I think like that was very purposeful in a lot of ways, but in a way to connect the audience with the cast. And I feel like there's just more, everything felt very purposeful in their casting and the way that they kind of strung the people together. And like you're saying, even in comparison to early 2000s or like mid 2000s, when
Yeah.
Real Housewives started, like that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have been seen as like an advantage. That wouldn't have been seen as a cool thing to have part and like something that an audience would relate to. There was a lot of work, especially in Orange County, that like was actively against that. And it was really about affirming like heteronormative relationships and women's part in that. And so I think it was really cool to see that they wanted to start off that season with that energy. And Jenna was the perfect person to have. Like she is just so fucking cool. We love Jenna here. We
Jenna
didn't even,
fucking
yeah, we didn't
Lyons.
even say that we're in her apartment. So sorry.
Mm.
But we are in Jenna's apartment. I'm on the couch, Abby's in the kitchen.
I'm in the kitchen cooking up
Yeah.
a storm.
Just fucking love Jenna. And I think to me, she really like made the show what it is. And
Yeah.
I'm just so proud that she agreed to be on it. I'm just so blessed because her presence is so good.
We have all been blessed with her presence.
Truly.
Uh, yeah, no, she has made a huge impact. And I know she has a partner that there's recently been some swirlings around of a possible engagement.
Yes.
We'll find out, but I'm kind of excited at the possibility that we might see more of her love life as
Yeah.
part of the show. Even
Yeah.
just like a little sprinkle of that.
Just
But
something, Jenna.
we're just so happy for her.
Yeah, I love her boundaries. I think it's really healthy and I think fair
Yeah.
enough. Like it's your first season doing this and like
Yeah.
I think it's totally fair to just sort of see how you like it before you bring somebody else into it.
Yeah.
And she's not sort of going into like we are this like happy queer couple that's like
Yeah.
first on the show. Like she's like just being herself and I totally respect that. But I would
100%.
love to see her sort of like open up more about that kind of stuff. And I know that that's sort of been a theme in some of the conflicts that came up throughout the season was Jenna sort of feeling like there were some walls up, but to me, she was very vulnerable about a lot of things. And
Yeah.
she shared a lot that I would probably really struggle with if I were on the show. Like talking about her mom, talking about her like divorce and her coming out and her being forced to come out, like
Yeah. Her
all that
body
stuff.
image, like
Yeah,
just so many
everything.
things.
Yeah, so I feel like she didn't really get a whole lot of credit for how vulnerable she really was.
Agreed.
Um, and I think like as Capricorn women, we can maybe resonate with the fact that there is this like maybe potentially can be seen as like cold or intimidating to other people, but it's really like just it's just sort of protecting ourselves and we're giving you crumbs, so like fucking take it.
Yeah. Fucking take it or leave it.
Yeah. Yeah, I found
No.
that weird.
Yeah. I agree. It was a little bit odd, but I also kind of felt like, okay, well, clearly you're kind of just making this up out of thin air because you have nothing else to really go off of. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like maybe there was some pressure potentially to create a storyline or create some conflict or drama, and nailed it.
Nailed it.
Um, and like they got along so well and
Yeah.
so naturally that like it was a challenge for them
Yeah,
to
for sure.
have conflict, right?
Yeah, and I'm remembering like Jenna sort of talking about feeling like worried about being excluded amongst the group. And then fast forwarding to the reunion, Uba sort of throwing it out there like, are we going to talk about how all the other women on the couch didn't want you part of the show? Like my heart really hurt for Jenna when
Yeah.
Uba said that because yeah, that would be a huge anxiety of mine. Like going into like this whole show of women I don't know really well, kind of the first of my own. Like I feel like Jenna was really paving the way here for a lot of
Yeah.
future housewives and potential. And I just, yeah, my heart broke for Jenna when I heard that because anybody would just be like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I feel like it completely came out of left field. And I
Yeah.
think even at the end of the reunion, she was like, oh, that was nothing. Like,
Yeah, I know. I really needed
girl.
that because I think we might have even talked about this on a previous episode. It was really put a bad taste in my mouth how Uba kind of had just said like, "Oh, I was just angry." So it's like when you're angry at somebody else. I mean, she's sort of angry at Jenna, but it's kind of like indirect about just the whole group that you're just gonna throw somebody under the
Yeah.
bus like that and then later just kind of brush it off. Like, no, that was
Yeah.
really like out of left field and not cool.
It was weird.
Yeah,
It
it
was
was
weird.
misplaced.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Uba and um probably Jessel have like the most work to do for me
Yeah.
as a viewer. Like
Mhm.
I appreciate that they're both there and I like what they bring to the table, but I definitely had moments with both of them that I was kind of like, not sure how this is
Mhm.
gonna go.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I have a question about that because I want your opinion
Oh,
on this.
yeah.
I'm curious how you feel in general about the whole discussion that was being had about Jessel's husband flying to, where was he going to? Vietnam?
Vietnam, yeah.
Yeah, for points. So there's that. And then plus like women talking about that, and what was your feeling on that as a viewer?
Man. Um, okay, so I used to work with someone who was really into the points, the air miles,
Okay.
and did like everything to
Mm,
just accumulate the points. And it
yeah.
was like the dedication and the commitment and like it was like, okay, I'm going out of my way to like get
Yeah.
these extra points. Like they were hardcore. So
Right.
I'm like, okay, I know that that's a thing. I know that that's possible.
Okay.
Was it odd? Yeah, it
Yeah.
was odd. Like, let's call it what it is.
Yeah. I agree.
Um, I get like if they would have brought it up at some point, it wouldn't have been, I think, out of left field, but I think the way that they approached it and kind of ganged up on her and made it like they kept giving it life and making it this big thing. I did
Mhm.
feel at times like, okay, just like they're good, like just let them be.
Yeah, that is such a good point. Like, and it was very clear that Jessel was fine with it for the most part, and that to me is always the definer of whether it's worth talking about, because I think it was like Shannon bouncing over to Orange County. Like she's the one that's venting to everybody about her relationship and saying how unhappy she is, how it really impacts her. So when they talk about John and their relationship, it's coming from a place of concern for Shannon. But Jessel
Yeah.
was saying, like, I'm fine with this. Like, it's not, things are lining up perfectly for me and my family. Like,
Yeah.
the fact that Sai was sort of insinuating that like Jessel and her husband like weren't totally clear on the date that he was leaving to me is ridiculous because they have two young kids. They live
Yeah.
together. Like, of course, they're in communication about whenever he's going to go to Vietnam. Like, and it's
Yeah.
just a different way that they operate. Yeah, I fully agree with you. It was weird. I definitely was like, what?
Yeah.
When they were first saying that, but hey, like they got the money to do it. He wants the points. And he was like, I just want to go and have a sandwich. Like, get that on me, boy. Like, I get it.
Honest to God, if I could, I would.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just don't care anymore. They just kept making it a thing, and I just
Yeah.
didn't care.
No, I agree. Yeah. It was a little silly,
Silly Willy.
silly.
Yeah, so that to me is sort of over. I think it was interesting to see like how that situation bled into sort of like other conflicts that Jessel was having. And I feel like it was just more reflective of other conversations that were going on and feeling like Jessel wasn't being totally honest with the group. Like I think that was the main theme was like
Yeah.
Jessel not being fully present and not fully honest. Um, which I don't know if I fully believe that personally. Like I think Jessel was showing up in the way that she probably knew best how to. And I think in her way, she was being honest by talking about like her living situation with her uncle and sort of what she experienced in her early 20s. I
Hmm.
understand where Sai is coming from to a certain degree on her feelings around that. But at some point, like that is Jessel's experience in her early 20s. And like that was difficult for her to only have $20 and to live off her savings and to move in with her uncle like wasn't a good experience and like I do kind of think that she was being as honest as she is like that's just her truth and I just think Sai
Yeah.
didn't like it and that's it. you know
Yeah. I think it was just like two very different
yeah,
experiences and maybe values like bumping up against each
totally,
other,
yeah.
is all it really was at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I
But
think it's interesting when you think about like what we use to connect with other people. And to me, I was so reminded by like sometimes it's not about putting yourself in a position, like inserting your own story to understand somebody else's, like
yeah,
talking about Sai's mom's alcoholism and like kind of connecting that to her uncles. Like although that may feel really similar to her, having the self-awareness of knowing how it might be landing for Sai,
yeah,
I understand where Sai was coming from with that, and I feel like she was just being protective of her mom at that point, which is kind of off limits. And I did like Uba's point actually at the reunion, how like I think it was a reunion that like in different cultures, like different family members can feel like different have different importance. So like I think for
yeah,
us, a mother figure is kind of like no-go zone, whereas other cultures can see like aunts and uncles and cousins like as the same importance and same significance.
100%.
So I that was something that was interesting that I was thinking about. But I just think like Jessel was more saying it not to be like, hey, here's something cool about me, or here's
Yeah,
like a vulnerable story to share. It was coming from a place of like trying to connect, which I would have loved to see more self-awareness on Jessel's part to acknowledge that.
exactly. I think that's the thing I struggle with Jessel is the lack of self-awareness at
Yes.
times. Like I really, really liked her from the start, and then it kind of started to go downhill a little bit. So I'm curious to
Yeah.
see what comes out in the next season. But yeah, in that moment, I did feel like it was out of place, and I'm like, girl, this is not your moment. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. I also do feel like though it was interesting how Sai was like be honest with us, like tell and then like she did, and then it just like
yeah,
wasn't good enough. So like
yeah, that's
I
true.
can I can understand Jessel's like frustration with that, but then also taking a moment. Like I think two both things can coexist at once, is what I'm
For
trying to say.
sure.
Like I can see both sides.
Duality.
Duality. But I think overall, like you're saying, the lack of self-awareness, like Jessel's whole, like it really bugged me when Jenna had gifted everybody some like lingerie to wear for fun or some pajamas to wear,
Yeah.
and she was just like shit talking it the whole time. And although I've truly like been there with my own
Yeah.
confidence, and like
Yeah.
sometimes I say things and it can feel like I don't want to say tone deaf, but not super aware that maybe like this is a gift and like whatever. It's just you can't get over your own head, you know,
I
like you're just
know.
feeling insecure and
If
that's
you
it.
feel like you're the ugly duckling in the room,
Yeah.
that feeling of like I'm like standing out or I don't feel
Yeah.
like I'm part of this or
Yeah.
like somehow I'm like different than
Yeah.
everyone else, not in a good way, like that is a really hard space to find yourself. And like we don't know all of Jessel's history in that regard
Yeah.
and what could have been coming up for her. So I definitely
Yeah.
get, I think another example of duality, there were
Ooh.
like multiple things happening there.
Hmm.
Um, and I did feel for Jessel in that situation. And I also felt for Jenna because I'm like, girl,
Yeah.
like, I would be maybe having like my moment upstairs or like maybe like just grounding yourself to get
Hmm.
through the moment. And then if it's still eating away at you, like pull her aside and say, like, girl, I just want to say, like, this is how I felt. And I don't, whatever. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been multiple ways to go about it,
Mhm.
differently.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Always differently.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was really anticipating Jessel feeling different at the reunion. I thought she was going to come into it and be like, wow, I really saw that scene and I can totally understand. But it
Yeah.
really, I feel like Andy kind of had to like pry it out of her. She's like, when you
Yep.
were watching that, how did it seem to you? And she's like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was horrible. It's like, okay,
All right, there we have it, folks.
there we have
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
what do you think about Jenna gifting people things that are part of her brand? Like she had a collection of Majuri jewelry line, and Sai kind of saw that as a product placement to some degree. What's your sense of that?
I think it's fine. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's cool. Like, I don't know if you've seen the latest episode of Real Housewives of Miami,
Hmm.
but Marisol just did her little like pop-up lunch shopping day with the ladies of like some of those products that she
Hmm.
has, and they all fucking loved it. They're like, this is
Yeah.
amazing. And we've seen that so many times on the show. I think so who did the rooftop in Potomac? The rooftop with all the jewelry. I can't remember who that was.
Oh gosh, yeah. I can't remember.
But we've seen that so many
Yeah.
times, right?
Yeah.
And they love it. It's like, oh, this is so cool. I get to like support you and see kind of what you do, and it's free
Yeah.
stuff. Like, who doesn't love free stuff? So I think it was fine.
Yeah. No, that is such a good point. Something I was thinking about as I was watching it, so I was really trying to like put myself in Sai's perspective because I know that
Yeah.
Bryn felt the same way as well. Oh my God, we haven't even talked about Bryn. I fucking love Bryn, by the way. Anyways. Um, I know that they felt similarly about that. And something that I've noticed, just because I'm an internet baby, like I literally grew up on YouTube, like I'm in it. I'm like deep in the internet. Um, like a lot of influencers get PR packages, and it just kind of, from what I've heard, and shout out to Samantha Ravindall, who's a Canadian YouTuber. I fucking love her. She's actually removed her name off of all PR lists because of the environmental impact of like all the packaging. And she's talked
Mm,
a lot about actually like the burden of having PR, which I know can
yeah.
sound like kind of tone deaf, and she's very aware of that. But she's like, I get these huge boxes and it's like nonstop garbage like that I just have
Yeah.
to like donate and redistribute and sometimes just like fully put in landfill and it's like not okay. So I can
Damn.
see like Sai's perspective of being an influencer and like constantly just getting like brand things and these gifts that feel kind of empty. Like I could imagine that that would feel kind of isolating to a certain degree
Yeah.
from her job, and then coming into like with her friends and getting like another branded gift and kind of feeling like
Mm-hmm.
like when am I gonna like escape this?
Yeah.
But I think that's more of a Psy thing than like a Jenna thing. Like I think Jenna was just being like, look at this jewelry line I'm really proud of and I want to gift it to my friends.
Like
Like,
I'm happy to share and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So again, duality.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Um,
I can see that perspective though.
yeah, that's a really good point. I really like that perspective on it because that that's why we're in the situation that we are as a
Yeah.
society, essentially.
Yeah. Totally.
But like I didn't really get that from what Sai was saying.
Mm,
So I feel like if
yeah.
she had like if
Said
that's
it.
where she was coming from, or if she had like said that a little more, I don't know, maybe it was just me, but I
Yeah.
definitely do see that perspective as well.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I feel like if it was like everything that she ever did or got was like
Hmm.
part of brands that she did, that might be a very different story because some people really like to get gifts and they really like to have things that are personalized or sentimental, and like everyone's just so different that way,
I know
right?
you truly can't win everybody over,
No,
and like I really think that Jenna's heart is always in the right place, if I may
I do
say so
too.
myself. And so I think, yeah, I think the thing with size, as much as I like her, she's just so she calls it blunt, but to me it's more like it's just such raw emotion. It's so funny that she says that she's not like an emotion person because to me she's all
Yeah.
that. She's so reactive and so like blunt. Like it's so here for her
Yeah.
that I think it's not quite curated maybe in the way that she would like it to be, and maybe like the actual intention of her message isn't coming out because it's just so like my words are here and like this is
Yeah.
fucking stupid instead of like, this actually makes me feel like blah blah blah, you know?
Yeah, that's true. I feel like yeah, she definitely is blunt, we'll say. And
Hmm.
like she is to the point. I think she speaks a lot without thinking first.
Yeah,
And
for
then she
sure.
kind of like go back. I love Sai because I don't know. What I like about people is when what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
Some kind of like flaws and all, like I just like the realness.
Love.
Because then I know what I'm getting.
Yeah, no, that's such a good point.
But yeah, I also can see where that seems to create a lot more conflict and stress.
Yeah.
But I'm also wondering like how much it's actually affecting Sai. Like if she says things or calls things out, is she actually like deeply hurt and bothered by it? Or is that
Mm,
just kind of her being her and she's like unaffected by
right.
it, you know? I
Yeah,
don't
that is
know.
such a good point because sometimes like the reaction can feel big, but I don't know if that's actually landing big for her, you
Exactly.
know? That's interesting. Um, I somebody that kind of surprised me as the season sort of progressed was Erin's vulnerability. Like I guess vulnerability, but also just like her sensitivity, I guess is a good word because she is a Cancer, which we
Mm-hmm.
learned at the reunion. And I feel like once I found that out, it truly clicked for me.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm just kind of reflecting on her anniversary party or her vow renewal and Sai leaving because there wasn't food. Two questions for you. Would
Okay.
you leave if there wasn't enough food? And how would you feel if you were Aaron and I was Sai? You know what I mean?
If I were Aaron,
Yeah. And I
oh,
and I left because there was not enough food. Like how would you feel if like just a friend, not me necessarily, but a
yeah,
friend
no, no, I got you.
left?
I personally would not leave because I can fucking like again, we're Capricorns, we endure. Like I
Yeah.
can be starving myself for days if I
Hmm.
have to like sit through something.
Yeah.
Like the like reputation piece,
Yeah.
I value more than like my hunger.
That's so funny. Like just basic needs.
I know, it's ridiculous. But like especially to an event like that. Like if I'm just hanging out with friends or something and
Hmm.
I see you all the time or whatever, then yeah, I'm sorry, I gotta go eat some food. But
Yeah.
like that was a
Mm.
pretty big one,
Yeah.
and I felt like that was pretty rude. And if it were my event and you did that to me, like that would be, first of all, shocking because that's so unlike you.
Yeah, fair.
Um, yeah, I'd be devastated. I'd be
Oh,
so hurt. I think
yeah.
what was more upsetting for me was the like the talking and the background stuff.
Oh,
It's
I
like I'd
know.
actually rather you just go than like stand there and
100%.
be whispering and talking.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't believe that. Like, with Aaron's sister like saying something. I mean, I'd love seeing that. It was so good. I just love
Yeah.
seeing people set boundaries. I think it's always really cool. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Power move.
And like just standing up for her sister, like I thought that was really cool. Oh my God, I would be mortified if I were in that position. And I think Bryn, like, as she does, kind of like made a joke of it, like, yeah, we're being fucking annoying, like I'll stop. And I love that. But yeah, I don't know. I just found that so hated that.
I don't know what was in the air in that moment because it did kind of feel out of character for most of them, like, or for the
Yeah,
most part. Like, it just
yeah.
felt really extreme and kind of like, are you serious?
Yeah, no, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what it was. It just was like, ladies, come
Shut
on.
up. 100%.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was weird. I'm also now reminded of Bryn being completely inappropriate with Abe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that wasn't cool.
I think Aaron handled that a lot better than I would have, to be quite honest. Like I
Yeah,
think Abe and Bryn would have been dead if I were Aaron. They both behave so inappropriately, in my opinion. Like,
yeah,
sure, they're friends and it's funny, but like this the place and time, like, oh my God.
I
They're at the
know.
vow renewal and
Oh
you're
my
joking about
God.
like when you guys get divorced, like come hit me up. Like that is so absurd.
I'm gonna put this out there. If if one of my friends ever approached my husband and said that to
Yeah.
them, I genuinely don't know that I could be
No.
friends with them still. Like
No,
I
I
would they
thought
would be
that.
out of my life so fast.
Yeah, no, I literally thought that when I was watching it, I was like, I would be so like, get out of my life. Like
Yeah.
I would be so not okay with that. It's
I
not
can't
funny.
even imagine one of my friends ever even like joking about that.
No.
Like, but
No, me neither. I just don't think
at
that
their
like
boundary.
I know, like it's funny from the outside in, but like to be in that would be so devastating. Like that would be so fucked up.
I would be mortified,
No.
honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's no.
that I did really like Bryn, and I appreciate her character and her like vulnerability and stuff. But I don't know, there's definitely moments where I'm like, girl, I just can't with you right now.
Yeah.
And that was definitely one of them that I was like, I am not sure about this.
Yeah. That's super. I
Oh
don't know
God.
about this one, girl.
I don't know about this.
Yeah, I really like Brandon. I'll just say that. Like, I think she's really charismatic. I think she's gonna be on the show for a long time if she
Yeah.
wants to be. Like, she's got that type of charisma that I think that was really attractive about Bethany too. Like there's just something
Yeah.
about women like that are just so like good on camera and quick and hilarious and like kind of with the times. Like her sense of humor is reflective of what's funny right now, just like on
Yeah.
social media. And I think that that draws a lot of people in. So I'm curious to see her development on the show. I think like again, it's so funny to think of this being their first season, but like I'm trying to be optimistic because even in Salt Lake City, even with 4 seasons, like Heather and Lisa and Meredith, like they've grown, and Whitney, like they've grown a lot, and really honed in on their confidence being on the show. So I'm really
Hmm.
curious to see how Bryn sort of develops over time. But I hope that she comes back because I think she did bring some funny moments. But yeah, that was definitely one where I was like confused, especially when she was like really shocked at the accusation of like flirting with a married person. I'm like, yes, you were. Like, why are
Who,
we
me?
pretending?
Like,
Like, she was like, don't now, you're really gonna get me mad. I'm like, girl, like, just say you were. It's fine. Like,
yeah, and like
Aaron's
have
saying it's okay.
and
Like,
like
Aaron's
have
trying
you
to get
heard
over
your
it.
own confessionals and like
Yeah.
your own self-awareness around how you like flirt with men and like use that to your advantage? It's
Yeah.
like, girl, like what do you think is happening here?
Yeah. No, it's you're doing it. And like, if Erin can find it in her heart to like forgive you for that and like move on from it and kind of like choose to laugh it off, fine. But like you can't deny that that's what was happening, you
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah. It was just a bit of a stretch.
definitely, definitely.
Oh man. Do you think that all of the same cast is gonna return? Like, do you
Mm,
think they'll give everyone a chance to kind of see what happens next, or
yeah.
do you think we might already see some fresh faces?
I think they would definitely want them all back. I think just given how successful it was, I don't see why not. I'd be curious if they wanted to expand the group anymore. Like I'm not really sure what the numbers are looking like in terms of cast size wise, because we're thinking about Salt Lake City, we have like Lisa, Whitney, Heather, Meredith, Monica. Oh fuck, I'm putting myself in a weird position now. Um,
Mary, wait,
Mary, kind of, Angie K. So like that's seven, six or seven at least,
something
like
like that.
something like that.
We've seen
Um,
some really big casts.
yeah, and like I feel like Beverly Hills is another big one historically. That's like a
Yeah.
lot of people on that show. So I could see them adding to it if anything, because I do feel like it is kind of the perfect size right now though. So I hope not too many, but I can see them expanding. Um, I can see Jessel not wanting to come back, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, my thought around it, I just think that was a really overwhelming first season for her. I think like for each housewife, there's always like one of them that kind of gets the
Hmm.
most. And I feel like she was one that shared a lot and then also was like in the most fights. And I can see her just
Yeah.
being like, fuck. But at the same time, like, I do think that she moved to New York to get on the show, personally. I think she's totally into like being a housewife. Like I think that she's thriving in that. And like just the way she talks, like she loves pop culture. Like it's clear that she loves pop culture. She's like into
Yeah.
it. So like of course she wants to be part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But I
Yep.
can see her like wanting to be back.
Yeah.
But at the same time I can see her being like she kind of left off the season being like I'm not gonna force anybody to be my friend. So like I don't
Yeah.
know how far that goes.
Yeah. That's such
But
a good point. Yeah, it is kind of I don't know. We did leave off at a point of kind of like I don't know where this is gonna go.
yeah.
So I do hope that they bring everybody back,
Yeah, me
and
too.
then I could see them adding like maybe one other person,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Hey, you
We'll
know
see what
what? If
happens.
I hate to say it, but if they can keep bringing Sutton back, they can bring that whole cast
Oh,
back of New
I
York. I
know,
don't know how
honestly.
I don't know how Sutton's done it. Must be something about her that I guess a group of Bravo people really love. But and Mary, like that's another example. It's
There's too
just
many.
it's just so crazy to me that some of them just like are like, please come back, you know?
Yeah, I know.
So
There's so many who've overstayed their
yeah.
welcome.
I just can't imagine any of the women not coming back. So I hope that they all do. Hope they all choose to. Um, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next season. I don't think it's coming out till late this year.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it's gonna be the end of the year or
Damn
something.
it.
I know. It kind of sucks to wait that long. And I did find that it was a shorter season.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
I
felt
think
that
I
too.
guess that makes sense if they're just kind of like testing the waters,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
I want more.
I know I want more.
I
Like
need
as I
it.
was watching it, I literally paused it at one point. I like turned to my partner and I was like, I am so happy to have this. And like, but it's also this like mixed feeling of being like a Bravo fan of like this is gonna end.
Yeah,
And like the end is coming. And
I
like
know.
it's so hard to fully be happy because it's gonna end. And so I just loved like
Duality.
watching it. So good.
Oh, I
Um
know. I think I might go back and rewatch it.
yeah, I'm definitely going back and rewatching Salt Lake City, but that's another episode.
Oh God, that's a whole ass
Yeah.
episode.
One more thing I wanted to sort of touch on was Uba and Aaron's conflict, because that
Oh
was one
yeah.
that was quite out of left field for me. Um,
Yeah.
I really thought that their pranks were just kind of sort of be like nothing and be like a cute thing because they all just don't take things very seriously. So like
Yeah.
to see it blow up the way it did was kind of surprising to me. And definitely showed a side of Uba that I didn't expect. But I also am like I'm kind of torn about it. So I'm curious to hear what your initial thoughts are about their conflict.
Yeah. I mean, based on what we know and what was presented on the
Yeah.
show, I felt like whatever was coming up for Uba was like an Uba issue,
Yeah.
um, to say the least. Like whatever was coming up or triggered in her going on there was like something that she needs to look at. Um, because I agree. I feel like they were all pranking each other and they were all doing things. I didn't feel like it was a different level.
Yeah.
Like I'm not saying that Uba's wrong to interpret it that way, but I'm
Yeah.
saying if she interpreted it that way, it's because of something internal for her.
Hmm.
But on the outside, it's like this wasn't really any different than like what's been happening this whole trip.
Yeah.
And I felt like it was, again, weird. Like,
Yeah.
where is this coming from? I would have been kind of taken aback if I were
Yeah.
Aaron.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Yeah, the way that it was like communicated and like it was just very dramatic, and I was kind of like, this is really stupid. Like, this is
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah. I feel like I can totally understand like Uba's frustration and like I think maybe it's like what I would bring to the situation similarly to Uba. I would feel like, okay, this one's feeling a bit harder than other ones. Like, especially with my phone, like when I'm saying like I want my phone back and somebody just has it, like I would just be
Yeah.
uncomfortable with that. I think I would get frustrated and just annoyed at the very least. Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
this
I
is like
get
too
that.
far. Like, just give me back my phone. Like, I get it. But I think it was like grabbing the sunglasses off Aaron's face and just like incessantly talking about it and kind of like
Yeah.
dangling in front of Aaron all day. Like Aaron just could not escape the like drama
Truly.
between them and it just like carried on. And like one thing that I'm learning that I really appreciate about some conflicts that we see is that it's like intense and it's in the moment and then it's done. Like that's kind of like how Tamara operates a little bit. Like it's
Yeah.
just all there and then it's done. But
Yeah.
this like ongoing like throughout the day it just starts to feel really like bully kind of mentality, which I'm always
Yeah.
tricky about that word because like
I
it's
know.
like they're grown women, but at the same time it just felt like okay, like at what point are we just gonna stop this? And because
Yeah.
it's not nice now, you
It
know?
was hard to watch. It was hard to
Yeah.
sit through, and it was like, okay, Uba, if you really want this to like not be an issue and
Yeah.
you got your phone back and like you didn't want to be under kind of that stress of that situation, it's like
Yeah.
you're giving it more life.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it just
Yeah.
felt, yeah,
I think the way that Bryn worded it to Uba of like we're missing like your thoughts and feelings are totally valid, but it's getting lost in how you're presenting it. I think
yeah,
it's something that I think a lot about myself too, because I feel like sometimes for me, I get stuck in like it's just raw emotion about how I'm feeling about something that I'm not articulating it in a way that I would like to and that I feel proud
mm,
of and that I feel like is
yeah,
aligned to who I am. And I feel like Uba is an incredibly thoughtful and caring person. So it felt weird to see it kind of go that way.
yeah,
And I think it was shocking for Aaron and everybody else on the trip too to sort of see that because I
yeah,
don't think they see that in her that she could do that like when she is
yeah,
just such a caring person. So um I appreciated that perspective what while at the same time like maybe he was allowed to just be angry though. Like I was
yeah,
kind of like I see where you're coming from with it, Bryn, but also like I'd want her to maybe just like maybe express that safely with some friends, like just her raw anger, so that way then she can go to Aaron and like talk about it, you know?
yeah.
So
I guess the thing that made it difficult was they were all on a trip together,
yeah,
away, not in the
yeah,
comfort of their own
so
space,
true.
around each other. Like, you can't get away from each other. You don't really have a lot of privacy.
Hmm.
So I can see how it would kind of like fester and
Yeah,
stew in that environment. I guess I'm just not 100% confident that if they were in their own spaces that it would have like cooled off as
that's
much,
so
but
true. Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's a
Yeah.
really good point. I didn't even think about that. And I think too, like one thing I was like, okay, Aaron, she had like pulled Uba for a conversation. She's like, you see, I've been crying. Like I've been crying all day because of this. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, Aaron, like you're also not bringing in the energy to like have a
Yeah.
good conversation when you do that. Like talk about how
Yeah.
you feel, but like, ugh, I don't know.
It was
Didn't
just
bother
a
me.
bad situation all around. And like,
Yeah.
I don't know if this hits for you, but I think as like Capricorn women with Aries moons, like we want that efficiency and we want
Mm-hmm.
to like get to it and be
Yeah.
really like practical in the way that we like express and deal with our
Yep.
emotions. So if something comes up, like the fire of our Aries moon is like wanting it to get out there and be really honest and raw. And then we're like, okay, let's just deal with this and get it done and move on. And it's
Yeah.
dealt with really efficiently.
Yeah.
So I have a hard time sometimes when those things that seem super petty just drag and drag and
Yeah.
drag. I'm like, Okay, I'm gonna go get a drink while this is
Yeah.
happening. Like,
Yeah, no, seriously. I feel like you just need a little bit of a breather from it. It just kind of feels like daunting. Yeah, I know what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah. But no, I'm still, despite all of that, I'm ready for more.
Yeah, me too. I cannot wait to see the glamorousness and the fabulousness and just like everything about this cast that I love. And I just love the vibe of it. Like you're saying, every single episode, every single setting was just a fucking vibe.
I know.
It's
Yeah,
great.
honestly, the vibes are so good. Like, I want to see more shots of everybody's apartments and
Yes.
the outfits. I fucking
Yes.
love size fashion.
Me too.
I just want to see more.
Yeah, 100%. Cannot wait for more. Let us know what you guys think about this last season, the cast, who is your favorite, who is your least favorite. I also would love to hear like if you could put any other New York housewife with this cast, who would you put? My
Mm,
vote, obviously, like we were
I
talking about, would be
know.
Ebony and Leah. Um, although I think Sonia could get down with this group.
That's what I thought you were gonna say is Sonia.
I do love Sonia so much. She's so
She's
fun.
great.
I do miss her. But yeah, I would love to hear people's feedback. And if that's everything, thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll see you on the next episode of Can't Be Bothered.
Bye.
Bye.